Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Janma.
And I'm Diksha Bisla, and on the show today, the protests in Iran are now in their third week. A US-backed human rights group says that the death toll from the security forces crackdown has crossed 2,000. We're going to get you all the details on the show today. Stay tuned.
While those death tolls and those numbers seem extremely concerning and there are differing accounts, we will be tracking the developments closely. Also looking at what's happening in Greenland. Greenland and Denmark, they've presented a united front before the high-stakes talks with top US authorities. Standing with his Danish counterpart, Greenland's Prime Minister said that his country chose Denmark and it will not be owned by the United States. We'll bring you the latest on that. Let's start with the headlines first.
Mark Carney departs for China to discuss trade and international security, marking the first Canadian Prime Minister visit to Beijing since 2017. And this is amid strained relations with the US over trade and security issues.
We will take very strong action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action.
Donald Trump warns that US would respond strongly if Iran begins hanging people amid its crackdown on the uprising, expressing concern over potential mass executions.
Iran's National Security Chief Ali Larijani calls Trump and Netanyahu main killers of Iranian people after US President cancels talks with Iranian officials amid unrest that has killed over 2,400 people.
US designates Muslim Brotherhood branches in Egypt, Lebanon and Jordan as terrorist organizations, citing their history of violence. Move aims to curb the group's activities and cut off its access to financing. Greenland's Prime Minister says the island would choose to remain part of Denmark over a US takeover ahead of White House talks, rejecting Trump's repeated suggestions of buying or annexing the territory.
Republicans on House Oversight Committee moved to hold former US President Bill Clinton in criminal contempt after he fails to appear for a subpoena deposition in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation.
The IDF says it killed 2 militants in southern Gaza after identifying 6 armed fighters near Israeli troops in western Rafah. Exchange involved tank fire and airstrikes, despite an ongoing fragile ceasefire with Hamas.
South Korean court plans to deliver a verdict on February 19th in a case against former President Yoon Suk-yeol for his December 2024 declaration of martial law. Prosecutors demand death penalty for him.
US consumer prices rose 0.3% in December, in line with economists' forecasts, as annual inflation holds at 2.7%. The modest rise supports views that the Federal Reserve will maintain current interest rates as it assesses progress on inflation. Protests in Iran are now in the third week. A US-based human rights group says that the death toll from the security forces crackdown has crossed 2,400.
And the Iranian state television, in a broadcast on Tuesday, offered the first official acknowledgement of deaths in protests, quoting an official saying that there was a high number of martyrs and that did not release a toll earlier because of the dead suffering gruesome injuries. However, the statement came only after the rights group reported their toll.
It also released footage that is said to show scenes of the aftermath of the protests in several major cities. The images depicted buildings on fire, burnt vehicles and damaged banks.
They burnt almost 50 vehicles, buses, private cars and emergency vehicles.
US President Donald Trump, in a post on Truth Social, urged people to continue protesting and called on them to take over government institutions, assuring that help was on the way. And when asked what he meant by help was on its way, Trump declined to clarify. The US President also said that nobody had been able to give him an accurate number for how many protesters have been killed in the recent demonstrations.
I have heard numbers from everything's a lot. One is a lot. But I've heard numbers much lower and I've heard numbers much higher. We'll be knowing, we're probably going to find out over the next 24 hours. I think it's a lot.
In an interview with CBS later in the day, he warned that a deadly crackdown on protesters would bring a lot of problems for the country's leadership.
We don't want to see what's happening in Iran happen. And, you know, if they want to have protests, that's one thing. When they start killing thousands of people, and now you're telling me about hanging, we'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good.
Well, reports suggest that Israeli and Arab officials have privately suggested that US hold back on large-scale strikes. They believe that the Iranian regime may not yet be weakened to the point where US military strikes would be the decisive blow that topples it.
There are also reports doing the rounds that Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff has secretly met the son of Iran's ousted Shah, Reza Pahlavi, to discuss these protests going on in Iran. As ambiguity prevails over US next action, Iran's UN ambassador Amir Sayed Iravani has written to the UN Security Council. In this letter, he has accused Trump of encouraging political destabilization, inciting violence and threatening the country's sovereignty, territorial integrity and national security. The letter said the US, along with Israel, bore direct and undeniable legal responsibility for the loss of innocent civilian lives, particularly among the youth.
Well, UGC images posted on social media show dozens of bodies lying at the Forensic Diagnostic Center of Tehran province, Kharizak, as grieving relatives search for their loved ones.
All right, to discuss this further, we're now being joined live by Adrian Calamel. He's a fellow at Arabian Peninsula Institute. Adrian, always a pleasure having you here with us on World DNA. Help is on the way. And when you ask the US president what help is on the way, he's not giving further details. Up till 10 days ago, Trump had said we're locked and loaded and ready to go. And now, first thing we see coming out from the US is more tariffs. Is the US grappling with what they want to do in Iran at this point, or with Iran?
Great to see you, Siobhan, and that's a good question. I don't think they're grappling. I think they're kind of, you know, Trump's, I think he's just trying to get more reports out of the Islamic Republic as to what's happening. You know, he's worried about the death count and the death tolls, and he said that if people start going to the gallows, then they're going to take action. Well, you know, they've been massacring people in the streets now for 2 weeks. You know, lowball estimates put it about 2,400. Other estimates put it as high as 20,000. So Trump's got a real decision, you know, to be made. And for me, one of the, you know, there are things that he's doing with the maximum pressure to try and hurt the regime financially, but that doesn't give the protesters space. One thing that they're trying to do is, and they have been successful in getting Starlink terminals into the country, and that's the only reason why we get video out of the Islamic Republic right now. The one thing that he can do, and the one thing that wasn't degraded during the 12-day conflict, was to at least target a couple of the Basij or the IRGC bases. And the Basij bases are the shock troops for the IRGC, plain clothed, riding around on motorcycles with shotguns and batons. And they're the ones out in the streets killing most of the people.
Understood.
Right. And Adrian, while Iran is under immense pressure, critics argue that there still may be time before the regime dies out. It's not at the point yet where it could be toppled with the kind of escalation that we're seeing. And crucially, the security forces still remain loyal. And we've seen the Islamic Revolution from 1979. The Iranian authorities have spent money and creating an elaborate and rather ruthless network of coercion and repression. Do you think this situation is going to be escalated further, or do you think regime change is still something we'll have to wait and see if we progress towards that?
Great question, Diksha. And I really do think we are going to be progressing rather rapidly towards regime change. When I look at past protests compared to what we're seeing now, what we've seen the Islamic Republic lose basically almost all its proxies and Assad in Syria from 2023, October 8th, 2023, to the present, as well as his nuclear program, ballistic program. The one place where, and you're exactly right, is the security apparatus. It's multi-layered, and that's the one thing that hasn't really been affected. Many believe that if the war had gone on, the 12-day war had gone on another week, that was the next target package, was going to be hitting those repression forces to give the opposition some space. But, critics would come back and say, well, then you're pushing for regime change instead. Well, we're kind of now at that stage where, Trump drew a red line. And Obama made that mistake with Syria. He put a red line in place, and then when chemical weapons were used, he did not enforce that red line. Trump cannot make that same mistake. He put that red line in there, and he needs to live up to it. And the Iranian people are expecting it.
Understood. And Trump said that they've crossed all his red lines. But I just want to bring it back to what you mentioned. You did mention the 12-day war. Adrian, during that 12-day war, we understand Iran took big damage, but so did Israel. Iran is not a nation which is not going to go down without a fight, and they're armed very well. Do you feel that's something that US will be considering very strongly? Because when or if US gets involved militarily, as they're saying time and again with Iran, there is going to be a reaction, and Israel is going to bear the brunt of it.
Yeah, all these things are being calculated right now. And I think the biggest calculation that the U.S. administration needs to look at is that these protests didn't just start, 2 weeks ago. They've been basically roaming around the country since December in 2017, with peaks in 2019 when they shut down the internet and killed 1,500 people. Okay, the 2022 Masa Amini murder and what that happened. And now with what we're seeing now, it's the regime may project itself as being really strong, but they are in the weakest position I have seen them in 47 years. And that goes back to the Iran-Iraq war. They're weaker now than they were then.
Adrian, thanks so much for joining us here on the broadcast. This is a very rapidly evolving situation, and the death toll has been most concerning, because till yesterday we had figures like 650 coming out. Today we're already standing at 2,400. There are estimates of 20,000, 12,000. These are deaths we're talking about. These are not just some random figures. We'll need to wait and watch what really comes out, because the situation is really dire in Iran. We are going to be tracking that closely. That was Adrian Kalimal joining us on World DNA.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, a Hamas delegation is in Cairo to hold discussions on the Gaza ceasefire.
Well, the delegation will hold talks with the Egyptian side on completing the implementation of the first phase of the ceasefire, including the opening of the Rafah crossing in both directions. The Hamas delegation is led by the group's chief negotiator in Gaza, True Stocks, Khalil Al-Hayya. A statement by Hamas side said that the discussion will also focus on accelerating transition to the second phase, including formation of the administrative committee and the complete withdrawal of the Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip.
The delegation is also scheduled to meet with leaders of Palestinian forces and factions, where they will continue to discuss the rapid political and field developments in the Gaza Strip and the occupied West Bank.
Now, under the terms of the October 2025 ceasefire agreement, Gaza is to be administered by a transitional committee of Palestinian technocrats overseen by an international board of peace. The agreement stipulates that Hamas must disarm and have no future role in the territory's formal governance. The Rafah crossing, which is a key passage between Egypt and Gaza, has been mostly closed since May of 2024. Israel had earlier said that it would only open the crossing in both directions once Hamas returns all the hostages. Just to remind our viewers, the remains of one hostage is still not in Israel's custody by now.
Meanwhile, French Minister for Overseas Territories Manuel Valls visited the Gaza Strip as part of his visit to Israel. Escorted by the Israeli army, the French minister called for an expedited transition to the next phase of the peace plan, where he admitted that the Gaza reconstruction will be a long and difficult process.
I saw, both on the ground and alongside the Americans, the Israelis, but also French diplomats and from other countries, what elements make humanitarian aid as effective as possible, medical assistance and reconstruction. Reconstruction will be long and difficult, but I hope it will gradually become a reality, along with political and diplomatic prospects.
In another development, days after US withdrawal from 66 international organizations, Israel has followed suit. In a post on social media, Foreign Minister of Israel Gideon Sa'ar announced that Israel will immediately withdraw from 7 UN agencies and affiliated bodies.
The foreign minister accused the agencies of anti-Israel bias and described them as ineffective and bloated bureaucracy. A ceasefire has been in effect since October 10th, and aid groups say that many Gazans lack the adequate shelter for winter storms. Many families in southern Gaza are struggling due to the harsh weather conditions, and majority of these displaced Gazans are living in makeshift tents since their homes were reduced to rubble during the war.
The sea attacked us and destroyed our tents. For 4 days we have been living in the open, on the beach without mattresses. The sea took our mattresses, our tents, our food, and everything we owned.
Last night we were sleeping in the tent, and look what happened to it. The seawater, came towards and flooded me and my children, my boys and girls, leaving nothing. We have no clothes, no mattresses, no blankets, nothing. Thank God, thank God. We have gone back to having nothing. We don't have anything in this cold weather.
Gaza's health authorities said that 3 people died in a building collapse. Authorities said the death toll has risen to 71,424 since the conflict between Hamas and Israel erupted.
Greenland and Denmark, they've presented a united front before a high-stakes talks with top US authorities standing with his Danish counterpart. This is what the Greenland Prime Minister said.
Well, it will not be owned by the United States is what the minister said. Listen to this.
Now we are faced with a geopolitical crisis, and if we have to choose between the United States and Denmark here and now, then we chose Denmark. We choose NATO. We choose the Kingdom of Denmark. We chose the European Union. But one thing everyone must understand. Greenland will not be owned by the United States. Greenland will not be governed by the United States. Greenland will not be part of the United States. We choose the Greenland we know today, and which is part of the Kingdom of Denmark.
Danish Prime Minister Frederiksen echoed the same sentiment, adding that Greenland is not for sale. Talking about the upcoming meeting with the US, she added that increased security measures on the Arctic island will be discussed during the meeting. Greenland was a Danish colony until 1953, gaining home rule 26 years later.
Now, President Donald Trump, of course, rejected the Greenland Prime Minister's statement. Trump said that he does not agree, adding that it is going to be a big problem for the Greenland Prime Minister. Trump has been taking up the idea talking up the idea of buying or annexing the autonomous island for years now.
He further stoked tensions by saying the US would take it one way or the other. Denmark's foreign minister and his Greenlandic counterpart, they are to meet US Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Wednesday.
Denmark's foreign minister has requested the meeting. He claims that the aim is to move discussions into a meeting room where you can look each other in the eye and talk through the issues.
Now, Trump has claimed that acquiring the island is needed for US national security. He has cited increased movement of Russian and Chinese vessels in the region to back his logic. The Greenland's location is highly strategic, lying on the shortest route for missiles between Russia and the United States. Climate change has caused the Arctic ice to melt, opening up the possibility of shorter trade routes to Asia.
Now, it has also made it easier to extract and transport untapped deposits of critical minerals. The potential value of rare earth and critical minerals in Greenland is estimated at $200 billion. The island's vast frozen landscape is believed to contain significant deposits of critical raw materials, including rare earth elements, graphite, copper, nickel, zinc, and uranium.
Residents in Nuuk, the seat of the government in Greenland, are apprehensive about the future. Many don't appreciate Trump's repeated advances.
I think he should mind his own business.
Why?
What is he going to do with Greenland? He speaks of Russians and Chinese and everything in Greenlandic waters or in our country. We are only 57,000 people. The only Chinese I see is when I go to the fast food market. So, yeah. And every summer we go sailing and we go hunting, and I never saw Russian or Chinese ships here in Greenland.
I think he's just trying to scare us about saying that Russians and Chinese ships is around Greenland. It's probably not true. I don't believe it.
Britain's top military commander has dropped a bombshell admission. Head of the armed forces, Richard Knighton, has told Parliament that UK is not ready for war, not even close.
And behind the scenes, the military faces a staggering $35 billion shortage that could cripple the nation's defense for years. More in this next report. Take a look.
The admission is stark and unsettling. Britain cannot currently fight a full-scale war. That warning comes not from critics, but from the top of the military itself. The head of the armed forces, Richard Knighton, has said UK is not as ready as it needs to be for the kind of conflict it could face. In plain terms, the country that once ruled the seas is struggling to prepare for modern war.
Over the last 30 years since the end of the Cold War, we are not as ready as we have taken a peace dividend, and we are not as ready as we need to be for the kind of full-scale conflict that we might face, and that's how we ultimately deter our principal adversary, is through being ready to fight and win. And part of that is also about how we modernise and transform the armed forces to make sure they're ready for that fight.
Years of cuts have hollowed out the force. Troop numbers are down, ammunition stocks are low, equipment is aging, readiness is fragile. In a world sliding back towards great power confrontation, Britain is running on fumes. Past reports tell the same story. Parliamentary committees have repeatedly warned that the UK would run out of key munitions within days of a high-intensity conflict. Defense chiefs have admitted the military is at its smallest size since the Napoleonic Wars. Warships sit idle for lack of crews. Jets wait on the ground for spare parts. Yet the threats are rising fast. Russia's war in Ukraine has reshaped Europe's security. China is expanding its military reach. West Asia remains volatile. Cyber warfare and space warfare are no longer theoretical. They are raging in real time. The modern battlefield is unforgiving. Wars are decided by logistics, stockpiles, and speed. Ukraine has shown how quickly ammunition disappears. Britain, officials admit, would struggle to sustain even a short, intense fight. This is not about panic. It is about reality. The UK still has elite forces, nuclear deterrence and global alliances, but the troop strength matters, weapon stockpiles matters, preparation matters. London's warning is a signal flare. Either Britain rebuilds its ability to fight and deter, or it risks discovering its weakness the hard way. History shows that admitting unpreparedness is dangerous, but ignoring it is worse.
And with that, it's time for us to slip into a very short break on World DNA.
Don't go anywhere. More reports coming up on the other side. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held discussions with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio covering trade, critical minerals, nuclear cooperation, defense and energy. We'll bring you all the details.
Also coming up, the ICC Men's T20 World Cup is less than a month away, but as things stand, Bangladesh will not travel to India for their matches, despite the ICC requesting them to reconsider their position over a video call. All this and more coming up on the other side. Stay tuned. You're watching Beyond World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
This is our brand new edition of South India, a daily dynamic show that will capture the pulse of the southern Indian state.
By blending special stories, stories of the day, breaking alerts and cultural vignettes.
From the 7 days.
The world's most powerful minds gather. Decisions that shape our future are made. From the Swiss Alps to you. Starting January 19th, WION will deep dive into the significance of what global leaders are deliberating at the World Economic Forum. The coverage will feature key roundtable discussions every day with top analysts at WION's headquarters. Stay tuned as we break down key themes from the Davos Forum to make it simple and engaging for you, only on WION.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA with Deeksha. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss on this side of the show as well. Let's start with the headlines.
Iran's UN mission accuses US of trying to create a pretext for military intervention following President Trump's threat of strong action over deadly crackdown on protests. Says US playbook would fail once again.
We will take very strong action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action.
Trump warns that US would respond strongly if Iran begins hanging people amid its crackdown on the uprising, expressing concern over potential mass executions.
Venezuela starts freeing jailed Americans. A U.S. State Department official says hailing the move by country's interim leadership as an important step in the right direction.
Israel severs ties with 3 international organizations, including 2 UN agencies, following US withdrawal from 66 global bodies. Foreign Minister Gideon Saar orders the review of Israel's ties with other organizations.
US designates Muslim Brotherhood branches in Egypt, Lebanon and Jordan as terrorist organizations. Citing their history of violence, a move that aims to curb the group's activities and cut off its access to financing.
Mark Carney departs for China to discuss trade and international security, marking the first Canadian Prime Minister to visit Beijing since 2017 amid strained relations with the US over trade and security issues.
South Korean President Lee and Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi visit Horyuji Temple in Nara on second day of their bilateral summit, where they discussed matters a week after Lee met China's Xi Jinping.
Gold and silver hold near record highs as softer US inflation boosted bets on Federal Reserve rate cuts. Gold rises above $4,600, while silver is almost hitting $70 an ounce. Both metals drawing safe haven demand and optimism about easing policy.
Joao Cancelo returns to Barcelona for a second stint on loan from Saudi club Al Hilal. Cancelo will make his first appearance back at the club away to Real Sociedad in the league on Sunday. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held discussions with the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio covering trade, critical minerals, nuclear cooperation, defense and energy.
Both sides decided to remain in touch on important bilateral issues. The Indian External Affairs Minister described the talks with Rubio as a good conversation in a post on social media, and the discussions revolved around a range of bilateral and strategic issues.
The call comes amid heightened tensions between New Delhi and Washington over trade deal and tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump over purchases of oil, which is purchased from Russia.
The talks also come just a day after new US envoy to India, Sergio Gore, said no country is as essential for Washington as India, indicating that both sides are working to firm up a trade deal.
Now, Gore, in an arrival speech in New Delhi, said that both governments are actively engaged in finalizing a trade agreement while also working together on security, counter-terrorism, energy, technology, education and health.
He described the relationship as one where real friends can disagree but resolve their differences, quote unquote, referring to the equation between Prime Minister Modi and US President Donald Trump. Security has been placed on high alert along the international border and the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir.
While security forces have received inputs indicating possible attempts at cross-border smuggling from Pakistan. And in response, surveillance and security arrangements have been significantly strengthened to ensure that no infiltration or drone incursions succeed. Take a look at this next report for more details.
Key frontier zones, including the Gurez, Uri, Karna and Tangdhar sectors, along with sensitive areas in the Jammu region, are under intense monitoring. Along the international border, Indian security forces, including the Army and the Border Security Force, are conducting continuous patrolling, enhanced digital surveillance and other precautionary measures. Troops are maintaining strict dominance over vulnerable sectors and remain fully prepared to respond swiftly to any security threats. Over the past week, multiple infiltration attempts and drone incursions have been reported, particularly in the Naushera and Rajouri sectors of Jammu. Indian armed forces have thwarted these attempts.
ये डिफेंसिव ड्रोन थे जो कि ये ऊपर आके देखना चाहते हैं कि हमारे अगेंस्ट कोई कार्रवाई तो नहीं हो रही है। मैं ये मना नहीं कर रहा हूँ, हो सकता है कि वो ये भी देखना चाहें कि कोई कहीं गैप तो नहीं है, इंडियन आर्मी में कोई ढिलाई तो नहीं है, कोई गैप वो जहाँ से वो टेररिस्ट वहाँ से भेज सकें। तो मेरे ख्याल से उनको उसका नेगेटिव जवाब ही मिला होगा।
Similar incidents have been reported across several other sectors along the LOC and the international border during the same period. In response, security forces have further heightened vigilance to ensure that no infiltration or drone incursion succeeds.
स्टॉक हुई है, उस स्टॉक में इसके बारे में जिक्र किया गया है और उनको बताया गया है कि ये हमें मंजूर नहीं है और कृपया करके इस पे लगाम लगाइए। ये उनको ये बता दिया गया है।
There have been multiple instances of drones sent from Pakistan carrying not only arms and ammunition but also narcotics. Due to scant snowfall in the higher searches of North Kashmir, several mountain passes traditionally used for infiltration into Jammu and Kashmir remain open. Intelligence input suggests the presence of around a dozen launch pads close to the line of control, where approximately 100 to 150 well-trained terrorists are waiting for an opportunity to cross over. Official data indicates that nearly 132 terrorists are currently active in Jammu and Kashmir. Of these, 122 are foreign terrorists, primarily from Pakistan, while the remaining are local recruits.
We've seen in Naushera sector as well as in Rajouri sector how Pakistani army's drones were trying to infiltrate into Jammu and Kashmir. We've reports that these drones are used for dropping narcotics as well as arms and ammunition, and in the last 1 week there have been multiple such incursions on both line of control as well as international border. Security now on high alert as they believe that due to no snow on some of the higher reaches in northern part of Kashmir, there could be chances of infiltration bids from the terrorist groups, as security forces already have an input that there are around 100 to 150 terrorists waiting on dozens of launch pads across the border trying to infiltrate into Jammu and Kashmir. With video journalist Firoz Idris Loan for WION World is One.
And a moment of carelessness that could have turned fatal in India's Madhya Pradesh. Panic and shock gripped a busy marketplace in Chhindwara city.
This was after a 1.5-year-old toddler was found locked inside a car while his parents were busy shopping. Now, the child was trapped inside the vehicle with the keys locked in and no adult in sight. People were alerted to his distress after the toddler began crying. A crowd quickly gathered. The heat, the lack of air and the child's worsening condition, it raised a lot of fears that time was running out.
Finally, a hospital worker present at the scene broke the window and safely pulled the toddler out with the help of the crowd. Bystanders say that his quick action may have saved the child's life, and shortly after that, the parents arrived at the spot and took the child into their care.
Well, if you also live far from your own family, ever wondered if there's a way to check the well-being of your loved ones?
Well, an app from China is claiming to provide a solution to that. A bleak-sounding app named Are You Dead has taken China by storm. It is designed as a safety tool for people who are living alone, and users have to click on a button to check in daily.
Well, that's the name they chose for this kind of an app, to show their care, but that's their choice. And if they fail to check in for consecutive days, the app automatically sends an email to one emergency contact on the next day, conveying potential life risks. Most importantly, no registration or login is required.
Now, this app was launched by 3 people belonging to China's Hunan province on Apple's App Store in 2025 at a cost of $140. While it started off as a free app, it is now a paid app costing $1.15 per month. And as of now, it has become the most downloaded paid app in China. This app has got global traction as well, as it emerged among the top 2 paid apps in countries like US, Singapore and Hong Kong. This app also figures in the top 4 paid apps in Australia and Spain. It is seeking to capitalize on the current day scenario in China, where solo living is on the rise, especially among younger people.
Weighing in on this app, residents appreciated the concept, citing that in many cases their families get to know about their ill health quite late owing to their hectic schedule. However, some lamented about it being a paid app.
I think the original design concept of this app is quite interesting, but it charges a fee. If it were free, I'd download it to try out. Even charging 1 yuan would be reasonable for a trial, but 8 yuan feels a bit expensive.
Now, as per official data, the percentage of single people households in China rose to 19.5% as compared to 7.8% 2 decades earlier. Now, this has led to concerns over their loneliness, safety and mental health. While this app has its share of detractors too, with some casting aspersions over its ominous name, its creators have vowed to refine the product by adding SMS notifications and making it more elderly friendly. The US economy is vulnerable to a significant shift on Wall Street.
And this is about 62% of Americans. They invest in stocks. Latest data now shows that the wealth of American households surged to a record during the July to September quarter last year, 2025, reflecting US stock markets run to all-time highs. In this next report, we decode the risks to the US economy from a crash in the stock market.
Last year, in the September quarter, US household wealth rose to a fresh record as the stock market continued to rally. Household net worth climbed nearly $6.1 trillion from the prior quarter to $181.6 trillion. That is, according to a Federal Reserve report. The S&P 500 rallied through that quarter and reached a record. That fueled increased wealth among Americans who invest. Stock prices were driven higher by optimism about artificial intelligence. The prospects of lower interest rates and healthy corporate earnings, clearly, that trend has extended into the new year, with Wall Street stocks hitting fresh record highs repeatedly. On Monday, even small-cap stocks notched their longest winning streak over their larger peers in 7 years. While the stock surge has resulted in increased wealth for Americans, a Gallup survey showed stock ownership correlates strongly with higher household income, education levels, age, and marital status. With disparities across racial and ethnic groups, that has increased the wealth gap in the country. The wealthiest 1% of households own 50% of all US stocks, while the bottom 50% own only 1%. That shows extreme concentration of equity wealth. In America, about 62% households invest in stocks directly or indirectly. Comparatively, Indian retail investors account for just a fraction of the population. Indian individuals are increasing their participation, reaching record ownership levels. Still, the percentage is about 6% of the 1.5 billion population. For America, the bigger risk is to the economy. If the stock market sees a deep sell-off, the wealth wipe from a crash in stocks will be felt more broadly, and the income gap will widen more deeply. American stock ownership significantly contributes to GDP, with US equity market capitalization over 210% of GDP. The investment share of nominal GDP is a key economic metric, averaging around 24% historically, but varies significantly quarter to quarter. Finance, insurance, real estate, rental, and leasing sectors are major contributors to GDP, accounting for over 21% of value added. In essence, stock ownership has indirect but substantial effects on the economy through consumer confidence and investment. For this year, the relationship between American stock ownership and the national economy remains a central pillar of US financial stability. While the stock market itself is not a direct component of GDP, it acts as a critical driver of the consumer spending and investment that fuel economic growth. Business Bureau, WION, World is One.
In Budapest's Museum of Fine Arts, a striking exhibition invited visitors to dance through silence.
And this was wearing wireless headphones, and the silent disco marked the closing of a major exhibition on English poet and painter William Blake, and was called Blake the Silence. Now, what looks like a nightclub bathed in pink and purple lights is in fact a respected treasure trove of Europe. Take a look.
There are many different kinds of people here. I saw young people, I saw people my parents' age, probably because some are attracted by the culture, others by the music. Tonight's even brings people together completely.
Poland has revealed it faced one of its most serious cyber attacks in years.
Targeting the country's power system and renewable energy networks, authorities say the attack raises new concerns about the security of Europe's energy infrastructure amid heightened tensions with Russia. Now, according to a Reuters report, Poland's energy minister, Milos Motyka, said that the attack took place in the final days of December.
Well, it was the largest cyber incident to hit the country's power system in years. Now, Motyka said, and I'm quoting here, the command of the cyberspace forces diagnosed in the last days of the year the strongest attack on the energy infrastructure in years.
Unlike previous attacks, which often targeted large power plants or transmission networks, this one aimed to disrupt communications between renewable energy installations and power distribution operators. Officials said the attack was detected and neutralized, preventing any disruption to electricity supplies.
Poland, which is a key NATO member and major supporter of Ukraine, has been a frequent target of cyber attacks since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. And according to Poland's Digital Affairs Ministry, Russia's military intelligence significantly expanded its cyber operations against Poland last year. Of the 170,000 cyber incidents identified in the first 3 quarters of 2025, a significant portion was attributed to Russian actors.
Authorities have not publicly attributed the latest cyber attack and have declined to disclose what security recommendations followed the incident. The attack underscores how cyber warfare is increasingly being used as a tool to apply pressure without firing a shot. And in cricket, the ICC Men's T20 World Cup is less than a month away, but as things stand, Bangladesh will not travel to India for their matches.
The Bangladesh Cricket Board has remained firm in their stand despite the ICC requesting them to reconsider their position over a video call. Now, in a statement released, the Bangladesh Cricket Board said, and I'm quoting here, while the ICC highlighted that the tournament itinerary has already been announced and requested the BCB to reconsider its stance, the board's position remains unchanged. Both parties agree that discussions will continue to explore possible solutions. Meanwhile, the BCB remains committed to safeguarding the well-being of its players, officials and staff while engaging constructively with the ICC to address the matter.
On Monday, the ICC had shared their internal security assessment with the BCB's security team. The assessment concluded that there was no overall threat to the side, but pointed to low to moderate risks in some venues and low to nil risks in others. Standard ICC categorizations used worldwide that do not, these are the ones that are used worldwide, that do not ordinarily constitute sufficient grounds to move matches. To add to that, Nazrul's fellow government official has also clarified that the assessment wasn't in response to Bangladesh's push to move their T20 World Cup games out of India.
Earlier this month, Bangladesh had formally requested that its scheduled matches in the upcoming Men's T20 World Cup be relocated from India. The Men's T20 World Cup is scheduled to begin on February 7th and run until March 8th. Now, Bangladesh are placed in Group C along with England, Italy, Nepal and the West Indies. They were scheduled to play all their group stage matches in India. Their first 3 matches are set to be played in Kolkata, while the final group match is slated to be hosted by Mumbai.
Tensions between the two cricketing nations escalated after IPL franchise Kolkata Knight Riders released Bangladeshi fast bowler Mustafizur Rahman from their squad for the 2026 season. And this followed a directive from the BCCI amid rising tensions between the neighbouring countries. That episode set off a chain of events in a tit-for-tat response which came from Bangladesh. The government there ordered an indefinite ban on the telecast of the Indian Premier League in Bangladesh.
The BTS comeback is upon the United States. The K-pop septet has announced a 2026 to 2027 world tour kicking off in South Korea in April and running through March 2027.
And this is with over 70 dates across Asia, North America, South America, Australia and Europe. They mark the group's first headline performances since their 2021-2022 permission to dance on stage tour. A pre-sale will take place for ARMY membership holders who register on Weverse. It is an online fan platform owned by BTS management company Hybe. A general sale for all regions will follow on the 24th of January. The news arrives a few weeks after the entertainment company Bright Music revealed that BTS will make their return to music on the 20th of March following a nearly 4-year hiatus. And that's because all 7 members of BTS had to complete South Korea's mandatory military service.
Rapper Suga was the last group member to be released from his duties as a social service agent, an alternative to serving in the military that he reportedly chose due to a shoulder injury. That was in June 2025. The 6 others, RM, V, Jimin, Jungkook and the J-Hope have served in the army. Well, that's all we had for you in this edition of World DNA.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Before we slip into a short break, here's a quick look at all the climate stories making headlines across the world. Stay with us. This is WION World is One.